think that within all of us there is a seed of good, and the seed of good just has to be nurtured. It has to be watered. It has to be taken care of, just like everything else that grows, that flourishes. And sometimes it takes being quiet just to really figure out from within exactly what we must do in order to correct ourselves. So silence is silence is a good place. It was a good place for me.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
He needs his nose. I just couldn't grab it.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So good to see all of you. I see folk are still coming in. So I want to just talk about the wisdom of silence. Can everybody hear me back there? A little bit more? All right. Silence. I am, before I say much more, generally a very, very happy person. So I felt like I had to tell you that because there are moments that I have sporadic smiling, and I can't help myself. So every now and then I'll smile just because. The wisdom of silence. For the next, however long this takes, they've allotted me a certain amount of time. I want to be able to share about silence and how important it is to understand what silence is and how that can be beneficial to us as human beings. We live in a very noisy world. It is very noisy. From the moment we wake up to the moment that we find refuge and rest, the world is noisy. And so today we want to talk about silence, the healing of silence, the wisdom of silence, the liberation of silence. I began preparing for this talk, unlike what I normally do. I talk about silence and wisdom and other things quite often, but this was different. This was coming to the Wild Goose. This was not at a college campus with students or in some some religious center or church. This was coming to the Goose, where people already understand freedom. There is one thing that the Wild Goose teaches all of us, every last one of us, that is freedom is possible. It's possible. It's real. It's not a product of Hollywood with all of the 3D stuff that goes on. Here we can be free. We can be alive. We can be the persons that we are. So being free, what can we learn from silence? Much. A great deal of wisdom can be learned. There is wisdom that we learn from the scriptures, whether they be Christian scriptures or Buddhist scriptures or Muslim scriptures, those things that lead and guide lives. People wake up every single morning and there's some passage or some point of reference that people find inspiration to live by. So there is wisdom in all of those things, and many people make a practice every single day, every moment of their lives, to live by some sort of scriptural reference. I talked to my father this morning as we were heading to this place, and he said to me, he said, I just want to share with you this. I know that you're going to do your thing, and you've been doing your thing there, but I just want to share with you from a parental perspective. He said, no matter what you say, and this is Dad, no matter what you say, it's going to be right. It's going to be right. Because when the heart is right, when the connection, the understanding of the connection to other people is right, when that's correct, no matter what you say, it'll be right. People may never remember what you did or how you did it or what you said, but people will always remember how you made them feel.
Yes. Yes.
So the Goose is about a feeling. I watched a little bit of the Goose TV, and then someone was saying, oh, this is just, it's different. I'm actually free here. And that's good. That's good. People draw inspiration from songs and teachers and parents even to find the wisdom that guides them. But there is within each and every one of us a wise being. You don't need gurus. You don't need masters. You don't need shihans. You don't need monks or priests. There's a wisdom inside of each and every person. And sometimes we don't get it. We don't hear it. We don't see it. We don't understand it. We don't even recognize that that wisdom is there. It is there. I think you got to have a towel or something. Just a napkin or anything. Thank you. And see how compassionate and loving and grateful I am. It's got bubble gum in it. It's all right. I'm going to wipe my head anyway.
That was my piece of bubble gum. Sorry.
There is a wisdom that resides in each of us. And today, I hope, as I've tried desperately over the years to help others to find it, I hope I can help you. I hope I can help you to understand that you're okay. There is nothing wrong with you. You're not imperfect. You're not flawed. or beyond hope because of the wisdom that lies inside of you. How do we find that? Let's just jump right into that. And before we get too far, there will be an opportunity for some engagement. So I like questions. And so you will be able to speak to me, and I will speak directly back to you. I think that is important. Many of us never understand who we are in life. We're born, and we are introduced to the world, to traditions, to culture, to environment. We are introduced to so much. And we emulate the things that we are introduced to. For instance, a child sees his mother abused by the role model, or the not the role model, but the father role in the family, and it's a pretty good possibility that child, if it's prolonged, may think that's normal. May think that that's okay. This is how things go. This is the way that people live. This is the way that the world is. They become conditioned by that, and they repeat those things. They repeat them. People do the same thing in religious institutions. Someone who doesn't know anything about faith comes into a place of faith, and if that place of faith is condemning of other people, then they will subscribe to that condemning behavior, and then they assume that this is wisdom. This is wisdom. We are doing what everyone else has done, and this is wise, and this is right. And this is the thing to do. And people will canonize other people's behavior. That's what happens when we are born. From the moment that we are born, many people canonize the behavior of those that they see, those that they are around, those that are a part of that immediate environment. People canonize that. And I use the term canonize because when we become the very thing that we seek, that becomes your wisdom, not your God. The idea of God is different. The idea of wisdom is greater. So people will worship the idol of behavior, and they assume this is empirical, this is the way that it should be, and never once question themselves. As I said earlier, we were introduced to the world. I didn't ask to come here. I didn't. My parents, I don't know if it was perhaps Blue Ribbon or Slience liquor, but somehow they came together, and there was me. And I was introduced to Christianity in the Southern Baptist, primitive Baptist, traditions, wonderful traditions. But much of tradition, especially if the tradition is not helpful to other human beings, can be damaging to the self. And so personally what happened for me was many years ago, I started evaluating. I messed around one day and I walked into a Buddhist temple, and they didn't look at me funny. They talked to me, and they were bowing, and they were speaking about love and compassion and all of these things, and not once was there the subject of God. But everything that I understood about God that came from my church, the behavior of that God as I thought it, I found in that particular temple. I said, wow, God is caring. These people are caring. And I started looking over at my church. I said, wait a minute. I wore shorts Sunday. Some of those people still won't talk to me. And so those things, I said, well, this is worth some contemplation. And I'm an academic, so the first thing we do as academics is we resort to thinking about our education, what we know, the knowledge, ginosko, epiginosko. We start, thinking, well, 1 + 1 is 2, but if you're doing algebra, 1 and that plus thing may be something else, and then there's a 1, and so it gets all misconstrued. I've never understood how letters can be numbers and numbers can be letters. And I started thinking, if my minister said God is love, God is compassionate, He is giving, He is for us, and God cares. And every Sunday, there is a myriad of negativity that comes my way in the church. I'm hearing all of the wonderful things that people are saying. I'm hearing the wonderful songs, but I'm not seeing the behavior. It forced me to have to look at myself. And so one day, I went quiet. I just got quiet. I didn't talk too much. And it was in the silence. It was, what's the word? It's an epiphany. In my heart, all of the good things about the universe, all of the good things about God, all of the good things about humanity, all of the good things about children, all of the good things about everybody, those images and those ideas were still there. And I believed in them. I believed that God was good. I believed that people were good. I believed that we, as human beings, are connected. And it was through that silence, sometimes confusion, sometimes getting to the place where you just don't know what else to think or do. Just be quiet. Sometimes that's the best medicine. And I tell you why that's such a good medication. Silence. Everybody's talking. Everyone speaks. And I've been taught through my Zen teacher that you should only speak if you can improve upon silence. There's too much talking in the world. We need more drones. We need more food. We need to save the women who are being used for sexual pleasure and those that are sold into slavery. We need to do so much. Everyone's talking. And if the mind is repeating information, and that's what we do when we talk. You can't learn and talk at the same time. If you're repeating what it is that you know, your epigenosko, that knowledge that comes to you through experience or through study or some sort of brush with something that's greater than you that just catches you in a state of awe. If that is what you are saying, then who is the self? Who are you? What do you have to add to the dialogue? So silence is good. It's good for us. It is good. It is really good. Someone approaches you and they have problems. They say, I don't know what to do. My life is difficult. My world is turned upside down. I don't know exactly where to go. or who to turn to. People come to you with those sorts of problems. And the first thing that we do is repeat information. I say it all the time. I used to do this when I was a Christian minister. I was also moonlighting as a Buddhist apprentice. And many people would wonder, what are you doing? You know, I saw you on the other side of the world. You know, what are you doing over there? Listen, if people come to you with troubles and you don't take time to hear, then you really haven't a whole lot to say. It took time for the trouble to develop, no matter what it is. My boyfriend is beating me. My bills need paying. My children aren't doing good in school. What grade are they in? They're in 9th grade. So you had all the way from pre-K to 9 to see this problem developing. And then all of a sudden you have an answer? You've not discovered the problem. And silence is the key. It's the key. I said something earlier, and one of the things, a good friend of mine, he says, I don't know how to define how you say what you say or do what you do. He says, but you may pose 3 or 4 questions or 3 or 4 serious things, and all of that's going on in my head at one time, but I'm grateful that you come back to it. You are perfect. There's nothing wrong with you. Let me go back to that. There is nothing wrong with you at all. How many of you have problems? Or just one problem? Just raise your hand. One problem. It's all right. If you want to keep your problem to yourself, it's all right. Here's what I know as a human being. I was dropped off on this planet November 23rd, 1969. You guys remember that? Some of you remember that. I see the grays out there. I was dropped off here. And in that time, in those 44 years, it's been a whole lot of noise. And it's only when I became silent that I understood things better. So, first lesson, take time. You don't have to speak just because someone's posing a question or asking you for an answer. Take your time. And it's okay to tell people, I'll have to get back to you on that. I know that your situation is pressing, but let me take just a little time to think. I'm reminded, it just kind of popped in my head. Everybody remember Hurricane Katrina? Yeah? Had so many, it's hard to... Hurricane Katrina was devastating. And the first thing that all of the religious people wanted to do was get down there. They were carrying bucket loads of Jesus in vans, buses, airplanes. They were going with U-Hauls and they were going with help. They responded, you know. Katrina was devastating and people said, we are going to the devastation. We are going to help out. We're going to do some good. And in many cases, when they arrived, there was no order. In many cases, much of the relief, the food, had to be trashed because everybody got that down there at the same time. And, you know, food had to sit there because nobody could get in to go and help those people in certain areas. And so all of those good resources, gone to waste because people responded. The towers were smoking and there were people that were falling and the Police and fire personnel were watching people as they were plummeting to their death. And everybody wanted to respond, and we responded in a big way. We bombed some places. We occupied a couple of countries. We killed. Need I say, there's no pretty way you can say you killed someone. There were lives lost. There were casualties. There were, things that happened that weren't expected to happen. You killed people. All because we responded. We reacted. And there's too much reacting. There's too much talking in the world. A whole lot of talking. And everyone's talking over everybody else. That's always the worst. Everybody's talking over everybody. That's why I smile. I just go along with it. I will not add to the confusion. I have learned. Take time. Be silent. What did Jesus pray in the Garden of Gethsemane? What did he pray? Can anybody tell me what he prayed? What did he pray? Oh, he was, Peter had sliced off this person's pieces and he put it back on, and right before that he was in the garden. What did he pray? What was his prayer?
Take this cup away from me.
Take this cup from me. Ah, yeah. If it's your will.
Yes.
If it's your will. So even Jesus understood that this is happening. This is real time. These people are coming to get me. I could run, but that would be reaction. I could flee, but that would be my instinct. I would be just like everybody else. And even Jesus took time. He took time. We follow Jesus. We have churches, we have buildings, we have cathedrals, and we honor Jesus. And one of the greatest lessons that Jesus left for us, we forget. Through his example of when there's trouble, when there's difficulty, just, how did the kids say? Just chill out. Just, yeah, peace. So, there is in the Sanskrit, there's a word called dukkha. Dukkha. And dukkha means, or it is translated as dissatisfaction. Or closely, or closer to dissatisfaction, the common term is suffering. Suffering. Dukkha, suffering. And people suffer. There are many people here who are suffering right now. They suffer. Dukkha means to suffer. And then there is the other term in the Sanskrit language that is sukha. So you have satisfaction or dissatisfaction, and then sukha, which means satisfaction. So you've got this satisfied dissatisfaction. And in common terms, we talk about a wheel out of kilter. That's a satisfied dissatisfaction. And that's where many people are in their lives. This kind of out of kilter life. Out of balance. And out of whack. Many of us are like that because we follow and never seek the wisdom of ourselves to discover who we are and contribute from that. Out of kilter. We have wonderful homes. We have wonderful jobs. We have recognition. We have laughter. And yet we have all of that, and many of us are still kind of like that wagon or that grocery cart that you get, the one you hate it just like I do, you get it, and you're trying to get in the store and out of the store without anybody seeing you, and then there's this horrible squeaking, and that front wheel is just... You're getting to where you need to go aisle to aisle. You're loading up your buggy. You're putting stuff in it, but you're rattling as you're going along. It's out of kilter. It's a satisfied dissatisfaction. Out of kilter. And so that's where many people are in their lives. So how do we fix that? How do we correct that? We take the time and we sit. And we do the most important and the most insightful and the deepest religious thing we know how to do it. And that is to breathe. To breathe. Wisdom comes through breathing, not talking and adding words on top of the breath, but breathing. We all have troubles, difficulties. But breathe. You really don't have to discuss a great deal about your troubles. They are there. They're going to be there. What's the saying here in the South that people say? Oh, how are you doing? Oh, no need in complaining. You're right. Yeah. Breathe. And receive the wisdom from within. All of us, we are taught, according to Buddhist philosophy, all of us are Buddhas. We just don't know it. Mm-hmm. We are bodhisattva. We are those who carry compassion in our pores. We carry the wisdom of the world inside of our lungs. Yet that wisdom is not ours alone. It's everyone else's. And so my first encouragement is this. I don't care how well-read you are, what you study, who you are, where you go, who knows you when you walk into a place, who has your name on the side of a building or a business card. It really doesn't matter. You are most important to everyone else when you are taking time with yourself. You cannot be useful to anyone else if you don't know who you are. If you don't know me, if you don't know yourself, how can you know me? All you're doing is if you offer something to me and you don't know me, as far as something very serious or some sort of serious situation, then you're giving me rehearsed information. You're giving me what those people gave me when I first arrived in this planet. What have you discovered? What insights do you have? I'm always amazed at something that Jesus said. Now, I still for years now love to use this. Jesus said something. He says, "Greater things shall ye do." You guys remember something like that? Okay. That's pretty interesting. He was the great one. But he's saying that we're going to do greater stuff. Wow, that's amazing. That's beautiful. So let's evaluate what Jesus did. He did miracles according to Scripture. He raised people from the dead. He walked on the water. He stopped the boat from turning over, and he did all of those wonderful things. And then he turns around and says that we're going to do something greater than that. What could that possibly be? And I think Jesus, being a bodhisattva himself, one who had tremendous insight, one who really knew himself because he spent a great deal of time in silence and contemplation. I think Jesus, over 2,000 years ago, understood that in 2014 and all of the years that would come after that, knew that we would be a generation of people who would listen and repeat the words. But as far as seeking the deeper things that Jesus talked about us doing, we don't put enough time into doing it. Not enough time. Greater things shall you do. Greater things shall you do. So there's raising people from the dead. What's greater than that? Well, for many people, it's just pausing to recognize other human beings in the room. Especially if there's racism, inequality, those things about the person or those people that you may not agree with, to engage them, to be in their space with them, that would be greater in this age, I would think. We are the exception. We are the goose. We're loving. But when you go home, what we discover is people who are of faith, who are very standoffish, and they preach love, and they will not reach out. And they speak of compassion, and they won't touch other people. And this is a problem. This is a problem. Someone came to the Buddha once, and he had all of these problems. And he said to the Buddha, he says, I have a problem, and I heard that you're a very wise person, and I need for you to help me with this problem. So the gentleman continued to rattle on all of his problems, all of them. And then after some time, the Buddha said to him, I can't help you. And the man got into an uproar. He says, what do you mean? What are you talking about? You are the Buddha. He said, Harta Gautama, I knew who you were. I know who you are now. I've heard the wonderful things that you've done. What do you mean you can't help me? And the Buddha said, well, your problem is problem number 83. The guy says, well, what's problem 83? And the Buddha says, you don't want to have any problems. And that's sometimes why it's difficult for us to really, really find ourselves. Because the problems that we recognize, we've already got an answer. We're beings that rehearse information. We're beings that if you tell it to us and it sounds good, we're going to repeat it. There's no heart emphasis in a lot of what we do. There is no deep, deep wisdom that comes from within inside of us when we do what we do. And the Buddha says, I can't help you. You want automatically to not have problems. So we haven't gotten into how you are to feel. You just don't want to have problems. You just want to be done with them. Listen to that word. It teaches us. Water is wet. It is cleansing. It washes. It purges. It renews. It does so much. It is added to IV fluid. that sustains us. It gives us life. If there is something in your eye, some jot of sand or some small minuscule thing, some beam of a bug maybe, something, it purges. It's useful. Yet many of us have been taught that the wisest thing in the world to do when it's raining is sit down, get away from the window, turn off the TV. Don't talk, because God can send that lightning, to shake the roof, and then you'll know that he is God. Listen to that. Listen to that. Don't listen to that. Somebody just tried to put a thought over the rain. Don't listen to that. Listen to the rain. Listen to that. Be silent. What problems do you have? Here's a practice for you. Think about this. Listen to the rain. Listen to it. Listen to it. Listen to it. Listen. Even the puddle. Listen to that. Hear that. Now while you're listening to that, and your heart rate is lowering, and you're relaxing, what problems do you have? Listen to that. The greatest lie in the world is to believe that you can multitask. You can't fix the world and not know the world at the same time. It's impossible. Small things. We love to cherish small things. We've even put small things into a time frame. We go to the beach. Oh, look at the seashell. Oh, look at the seagulls. And we do that when we go to the beach. There are no stones where you are. There are no birds where you are. There is no water where you are. Even if it's in your own bathtub, just pour it and just take your hand and just make some waves and listen. That water says you're complete. That water says you are well. Take a cube of ice as a spiritual practice. And I teach my students this, and everyone who comes, to talk about, what do I do with my problem? Take a piece of ice and sit it on the table. And sit. Breathe. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. And keep your eyes fixed on that ice and watch what happens. The ice begins to melt. And eventually there's a puddle around it. And then it spreads out, and before you know it, it's everywhere, and it's all back to water. We work ourselves way too hard. Everything is all right. We've forgotten that. We've forgotten that. We've become a society and a world of academics. I know I'm an academic in recovery from academics. And we're in a rush to do and to experience and to say and to fix. And isn't it amazing that every time we learn something, we want to share it with someone? And then many of us do the worst thing that we can possibly do. The ego comes in. And we feel good about ourselves because we were able to share something with somebody else. No, isn't that terrible? We feel good about that. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel good about yourself. feel better about being silent. Feel better about not having the answers. Feel better about not having the answers. It's okay. It's all right. If you don't know, you don't know. And continue to breathe. And continue to be. Who's on the committee to hit the switch for the lights? I mean, the rain to come on today. Anybody here on that committee? I'm on the planning committee for the Wild Goose, and I don't remember us having a subcommittee for that. The world will take care of itself. Human life will take care of itself as long as you understand your place in it. You want to do good for the world? There's 7 billion people on the planet, for God's sake. 7 billion. There are several thousand that have attended the Goose in the last several days. You want to do good things? Sit down. Be quiet. Know yourself first. Breathe. 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 The Buddha often talked about the ego. How the ego destroys. The ego creates suffering. And this is much of what our world has become, suffering, because of human ego. You see it everywhere. Ego. War, famine, disease, government, all sorts of things. Ego. Ego. The human family. The human family has always been okay. The human family has always been okay. Human beings have forgotten that we're okay. And so what we do is we try to fix what we don't understand. And in the process of fixing, we destroy. What is wrong with the rain falling right now? The trees will be beautiful next year when we're here because of this rain, this particular moment. Yeah. The ants will be bigger. French Broad River rain. So we don't have to do much. The ego destroys it. So one of the first things we should do, that we should learn to do, is to be quiet. And one of the basic practices that I do and I teach is to just for a few moments, everybody just sit. Just sit. And as thoughts come into your head, just let them be. Don't try to block them. Don't try to remove them or act as if they're not there. Just let them be. You focus on your breathing. Breathe in. And breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. Just relax. Just for a few moments. Listen to that wisdom. Listen to that. Listen to that. No greater words spoken than that right there. Listen to that. The sounds of the rain, the children, the river, the automobile. That is the wisdom of our being. That is who we are. It is perfect. It is holy. It is divine. It is wonderful. All right, so, isn't that beautiful? Just the wisdom. Just listen to it. Now, my question is, who in this tent is smarter than that? Who in this tent is smarter than the sounds in your ears of those children? Who in this tent is smarter, more wise than the rain that is falling? Who's more astute than that river over there? That beautiful stream of water, that rush. Who's smarter than that? None of us. And it continues, and it goes, and it exists without our egos. So that is wisdom. Wisdom is understanding that. True wisdom is understanding what is bigger than you, that you cannot contribute to. That by itself, in your skin right now, you couldn't stop the rain. With all of your degrees, you couldn't stop one drop. And the Buddha says the ego is what destroys us. Thinking that you've got the answer, that you've got something to say. It's what destroys what is already perfect. So how do we fix us? Do you remember when you were young? Like last year?
Good try.
And yeah, good try.
Oh.
And you lived your life, I'm talking maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and everything was wonderful. You didn't have a worry. The only problems that you had was you know, maybe you couldn't reach the jar of cookies or something. That was the only difficulty, you know, and you had nothing else after that. Did anybody remember that? When we didn't know that the world was bad, that the world had people that do bad things. You know, when we lived as children and the world was the world. We wanted to explore it. We wanted to see it and know more of it, to be in it. We were at our wisest. We were at our most wise moments in life when we were children and didn't know. We got grown, got some driver's license, bills, wife or husband, partner, children, and life became difficult. And in the process, leaving adult or childhood, we became adults and we transitioned. We jumped right in like everybody else, and we felt as if we needed to start having answers ourselves. That's what happened. We all do that. Every last one of us. But wouldn't it be wonderful to go back to when you were a child? You don't have to worry too much about stuff. You can. And that's my encouragement to you today. Learn to be silent. It is through silence that the buried images, the buried wisdom of your childhood can emerge. The happiness that you once had as a child is still there. Shut up. And listen for it. Just be quiet. And get back to your breath. When we were children, we burst out of the front door, and we had something on our minds. We were going down to see friends. We left out of the door, and we were running as fast and as hard as we can. And the only thing that we were doing outside of wanting to get where we're going was breathing. And when we arrived to that place, we arrived to our friend's house, we would say, "Hey, buddy, let's go play." And then yeah, okay. Our breath carried us. We've forgotten our breath. We've forgotten to be silent. And so it is through sitting, it is through letting the mind rest, that we discover who we are, who we can be, who we're not. It is through silence. Many of us, many people in the world become puppets, yes. They become what other people desire them to be, and they never discover themselves. And if you desire to discover yourself, then you have to speak to yourself. No scripture can teach you how to be yourself. Only you can be that. There is wisdom in silence. What I'm basically encouraging you to do is to intentionally take time to sit. And just breathe. The answers will come. The peace can happen. Your happiness can emerge. I told you from the beginning, I'm incredibly happy. I have troubles. I do. Just like everybody else. Everyone assumes that, just because you're a monk, you live in a temple, and people come and they meditate, and you do this all the time, they assume that you don't have troubles. This is not true. This is not true. I was a Christian minister for 22 years, and that carries over. People still remember sermons that I preached that they didn't like, So you're going to have some difficulty in life, but it doesn't have to be your everything. I have a few more things I'd like to share, but before I do that, because I think I've kind of poured out a bunch, and I'm looking at eyes, and I see pens, and the people are, and so I want to take just a few moments before I go into the second part, and then the ending of my discussion here. I want to entertain some questions. I saw some questioning looks. So any questions anyone would like to ask before we continue?
None of us are perfect. None of us. And the moment that we realize that, that's a great place to start, to begin thinking about who we really are. Because if our flaws define us, as they sometimes will in other people's eyes, then it's easy sometimes to get caught up into that. And so it's good to take time to be quiet and realize that we're not as bad as we think we are, and there's always room to be better. Always room. Always room to be better.
All right, very good. We got a few minutes. I want to talk about the true self. The true self in relation to the wisdom of silence. So, I left Christianity, honestly, in 2011, I believe, somewhere. And at the same time, I had been moonlighting as an aspirant at the Buddhist temple. And after I left Christianity, and let me explain. I left the institution, but Jesus came with me. If that makes any sense? Yeah. I wanted to make, Bushi, man, he spoke well, but I think he's Antichrist. No. Jesus is all right with me. You see, yeah. But the institution was something different. So when I left Christianity, Jesus and we loaded up our U-Haul, and we took refuge at Daishin Temple. And I began this practice of sitting. Like in my Qigong practice largely incorporates standing. Just energy work, just standing. And I came to understand that for 22 years, I have been a product of an institution that in many ways, not all ways, but in many ways, left out the importance of how wonderful it is to really know who you are as a human being. And so for over a year, my sitting practice became very intense and listening. And I discovered things about myself that I didn't even know resided in there. I didn't know. When you don't know yourself, let me tell you something. Get ready. There's a lot of stuff going on inside of you that it'll jerk some tears right out of you because the self has been lonely. The self walks around with you all the time, is with you when you wake up, go to bed, eat, sleep, shower, whatever you do. The self is in there, but it's lonely. And when you show up, what happens is there's a lot of weeping. For two reasons. One, the self is glad to see you. Two, the self has been hurting for someone to talk to. That's what silence did for me. That's why I'm happy. I got a friend. This is my best friend, and this is my better best friend. This is my wife, and this is my best friend. And they're wonderful people, but I am God. I am that I am. I make the sun of my own laughter rise, and I make the waves of my soul happy. At will, I do that. Because between me, myself, and I, we have good company. We have good company. This is what silence has taught me. You want a friend? You want to glow? You want to feel good about yourself? Get to know you. Everything you could talk about, everything that you could possibly say, when you introduce yourself to yourself, be quiet. Because what you're going to want to talk about is everything that you've done out here. And the soul, the self, that person that you are deep inside has been pumping the blood through your heart. It has been carrying the weight of your world. It has been hurting. It also has to, like the Dewey Decimal System, it has to catalog your pain. So if you want to know where your troubles come from, you need to talk to the self. The self has already put it in place. You just don't talk to it. You don't talk to you. And so what happens when you find out that you've got troubles in the happy section of your life? The self is so overwhelmed with the garbage that you're bringing that it starts piling up stuff on top of stuff. And remember, you're perfect already. So the self is cataloging your garbage. The self is working stuff out in your mind and in your soul, and you don't even know it. And the self is perfect. So when you get there, it doesn't want to hear about how you can, do this and how you can do that, or who you are in the world. It doesn't want to hear that. It wants to tell you how I'm going to help you to get to where I am. You can't talk and learn at the same time. That's why sermons generally are monologues, and then they only allow certain dialogue. And the dialogue is already scripted. You got to say amen, hallelujah, praise God, glory to God. You shout, you run, you scream, you cry. Those are already fixed emotions. But when you come in contact with the self, the whole action of your being changes. Many like to praise, and your praise can break out at any particular moment. When the self knows the self. When your true self comes up. But you can only find it through silence. You can't think your way upon it. You can't read yourself upon it. You can't do it. When you sit and listen, and there's no voice, not audibly. The trees are telling you that we're here for you. It's all right. We've proven that. Every time they tear the trees down, you look between the cracks of rocks and there's something that's coming through. Life will find a way. Life will continue on. No need to stress too much. How many of you own homes? You're constantly having to do something in the spring, in the summer, like putting insecticide down or something to keep the. It's going to happen. It's going to continue. Life will find a way. You just have to be in on it. You just have to be in on it. So sit in silence. I guarantee you. How many pastors are here? I love pastors. I used to be one. Let me tell you. Here's my challenge to you. This is a challenge. I challenge you to do this. Beginning Friday, right before you preach on Sunday, go into a contemplative practice of silence. Don't talk. Let your wife know. But be silent until Sunday. Let your people know you are silent until the moment you step behind the pulpit. And in those several days, just listen. Don't think about your sermon. Just listen to yourself. Yourself is what your people need. Don't give them anything less. And when it's time to improve upon silence, after you've had a practice of silence, yourself will offer itself up, and it'll go. And yourself knows exactly what to say. And it'll be the right thing to say. For the healing of all souls, of all nations, of all people. So if there's somebody, that knows somebody who knows how to push that button to cause all of the disaster for us, offer them you. Offer them you. Jesus' words when he spoke changed the world. When Jesus spoke, he changed people's lives. Broken pieces. There were people that Jesus engaged that were demolished. And when he spoke, there were tears of joy. There was something they hadn't heard before that they needed to hear. And Jesus said, greater things shall you do, pastors. Greater things shall you do. So if you want to see those greater things, know you. Know you and let the Spirit in. You're perfect all by yourself. Just let the Spirit come in through you. Not all the clutter. Through you. So develop a contemplative practice of sitting in silence. And watch what happens. And for any of you that are on Facebook, how many are on Facebook? Anybody on Facebook? I would love to hear about it. I want to hear about it. I would love for you to tell me, Bushi, I found me. Thank you. I don't care if it's 5 years from now. It may take you that long. I'm going to tell you now. I don't care if it's 5 minutes after we've left. I'd love to hear how you found you, because that's going to be encouragement to me. Yeah. That would drive me to know more of me, because I believe that when we are pure, when we are right, when we are for real, then we're holy. You want to be holy? Know you. Yeah. Namaste.
Namaste.
I believe in love and peace. I believe in silence and in me. I believe in happiness and smiles. I believe in you, and I believe in me.